Once again, Internet, welcome back again to Curse You Jordan. I am, of course, Jordan. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be playing a hidden object point and click game? Really? Actually, yes. I've played a lot of these kind of games, and it's sort of unfortunate that they have kind of a reputation as being for casual gamers at best and not for real gamers. But I actually did come across one in a cheap pack of games that I bought a while ago called Amulet of Dreams. And I was seriously impressed, so much so, and had such a great time that I wanted to feature it on this show. This game is the combined effort of developers Mystery Tag and Argali Entertainment, and was published by Run Server in 2016 and is available now on Steam. What really struck me about this game was how all of the elements that are typical to this kind of genre were better than any other in the genre that I had played, and they all worked together so cohesively. The story, while I admit is a little bit on the campy side, is still surprisingly engaging. The artwork is bloody gorgeous. I mean, it's worth playing even if only for that. I found the puzzles to be fresh, interesting, and varied. All of the different environments are a lot of fun. It's got a really neat mechanic of going between dimensions and traveling from parallel universes. And the overall length of the game is actually pretty decent too. For a game of this genre at its price point, you could certainly do way worse. I will state a couple of caveats right off the top though. First of all, the game's, shall we say, not exactly total strength might be some of the voice acting. I will forewarn you once we actually get to those points in the game, but some of it is extremely cringeworthy. But if you can manage to just grit your teeth through it, I promise the rest of the game surrounding it is a lot of fun. The second is, and again, I will warn you specifically when we get to that point, I will make absolute sure to put a lot of effort into making sure that a high degree of attention is called to this, but the game does have at one point, close to the end actually of all places, a game-breaking bug. Fortunately for me, I learned the hard way, as the first time that I played through this game, I accidentally stumbled upon it. I'll explain it in more detail once we actually get to the point, obviously, but suffice it to say, there's a point you reach in the game where if you do things in a certain order that I guess the developers hadn't anticipated, it actually locks you out of a section of the game that you need to be able to access in order to progress. And if you can't get to this section, you literally just can't finish the game. So rest assured, once we actually do get to that point, I will be taking extreme pains to walk you through the whole process step by step to make sure that you avoid that game-killing bug. Other than that, it's a total blast, so let's get into it. Argali Entertainment. Mystery Tag. Okay, so the first thing here, our settings. I tend to leave my settings on default here. And with our profile here, I'm actually going to change profile and just delete it because you can't, it automatically saves your progress. But if you want to replay the game, you can't just like start over from the beginning again with the same profile. The only way to do that is to literally beat the game, and then it lets you start from the beginning again. But then if you play again on that same profile, it forces you to pick up wherever you left off. So I'm just going to delete that last file and just start a new one. So because I'm boring, I'm again just going to use my name, and we'll get into it. All right, here we go.
Once upon a time, great trouble has come upon an ordinary family living in a modest house in a quiet town. Their child has fallen ill.
She's getting worse. The doctor has no idea what's happening to Allison. She's delirious.
The ordinary girl begins undergoing strange transformations. The family and the doctors have given up hope, but her faithful friend refuses to despair. Friend, an ordinary boy named Aiden.
Cut itself off there.
You are that faithful friend.
Okay, so basically we're a 5-year-old boy Despite how fantastical this game gets, that aspect of it maybe strains belief a little bit. But it's not really important, and pretty quickly into the game you totally forget that that's who you're playing as anyway. It doesn't really matter. Just ignore that aspect of it. And no, we don't need to play the tutorial because that's what you got me here for. So we start off with this photograph here. I guess that's supposed to be me, and that's our friend Allison, and I guess because none of the grown-ups can figure out what's wrong with Allison, we're going to have to solve the mystery. So you'll see our cursor here turns to this grabbing motion. That indicates that you can pick up whatever it's hovering over top of, and it gets added to your inventory. So you got all these inventory slots here, and you can click on any of them and then use them again on the screen. And sometimes items get used instantly. Occasionally, items can get 2 uses. I don't think that there's anything in the game that has 3 uses. I think 2 is the most. But even then, not many items. Most everything is just a single-use item. But so for this here, we'll just click it here, and we get our photo friends here. Okay. Oh, I've got to find Allison. She's somewhere in the house. This text disappears so quickly, but I'm going to be ignoring most of that anyway because it's not really important to the story. It's just meant to kind of prompt you along and also kind of prompt you for certain clues for how to solve puzzles and stuff like that. Again, I'm just going to show you how to do everything anyway, so if you're watching this video, then it's not really totally important. And again, it doesn't give you any additional information about the story. If you want that, though, occasionally some data may be added to. You've got a diary here, so you can click on that. See, it's got a little bit of extra text here that you can read up on. Occasionally, again, if you get stuck, you can always reference back to your diary and read up on different entries that you've made along the way. And sometimes they don't necessarily explicitly spell out how to solve puzzles or problems, but they may give you certain hints or clue you into something that you hadn't thought of before, or they might indicate that you have to go to a certain area that you hadn't thought of checking out before. So that's what the diary is useful for. And again, if you're really into the story, you can get a little bit of extra background detail here. And so it just shows right here, I've got to step inside of the house to figure out what's going on. So it gives you, again, the prompt that that's where our first immediate goal is to get into the house that's in front of us here. Also, you've got a little globe here that you can click on, and this is going to be a map of the area. Not to spoil it, but the game actually consists of a number of multiple realms, actually. Right now, only the first realm is available, so that's all we can see. And this little circle here with a flag here, that's going to represent the first screen. And each area is going to have its own sort of subset of individual screens. If a screen has a flag in it, that indicates that that's going to be the screen that you're currently occupying. Any other screen that you're not occupied, the circle will either be blank, indicating that there's nothing left to do or see on that screen, or it may also have an exclamation mark, indicating that there is still stuff that you can go back to that screen and do. As you can probably guess, this game is going to have a lot of backtracking. That's actually part of the main challenges of this game, is going through all of the areas, seeing all the different screens, trying to pick up all of the items that you can and add as much to your inventory as you possibly can, and then trying to figure out how to use it, where to use it, when to use it, where to go back, at what point, and everything. And I've played this game quite a few times, so I think that I've got it pretty down pat. I think a pretty good system for minimizing to the most that it's possible to do so, to minimize the amount of backtracking that you're going to have to do, to save us the most amount of time that we can. Anyway, that's what our map looks like. Right here in the middle is this little, this is just an icon. This isn't the actual item because we haven't got it yet, but this is the titular Amulet of Dreams. We're going to have to pick that up at some point along our journey in order to access the other realms, and you'll see how that works in a bit. But anyway, we'll get out of the map here, and then of course you can access your menu there if you so choose. Obvious options there. And down here is the hint system. You can click on this anytime you like. It's actually a pretty neat, robust hint system in that you can use it as much or as little as you like. I know some players get fed up kind of quickly, and they'll spend a couple minutes trying to figure something out. If they can't figure it out, then okay, I give up. Just give me the solution. Other people, like me, they'll spend hours and hours trying to figure something out on their own, and they'll only go to a hint as an absolute last resort when they're just totally stuck and can't figure it out. Also, the way the hint system works is pretty neat. By using it in just sort of a general way, it can indicate to you what screen that you should go to. If you're on the correct screen, it can indicate what area of the screen. And you'll notice here, as I'll show you in just a minute, there's some certain areas of every screen that you can magnify on and look on as points of interest. So the hint system will show you where to look on the screen. If you're looking at the right screen, or the right area of the screen, then it may even point to specifically the item that you need to either pick up or collect. And if you've already got the item, it might point to the item in your inventory that you should use. And if you're holding the item and you still use the hint system, then it might even just outright show you, dummy, this is specifically where you've got to click in order to make something happen. So it's pretty neat how the hint system works, is that it'll hold your hand as much or as little as you need it or want it to. But again, if you're watching this video, you're not gonna need it. Just follow my instructions and you'll do all right. So again, look how the cursor looks right now. That's the default position. The cursor, of course, changes to a different symbol to imply that you can do something different. So over here, for example, the magnifying glass implies that it's going to be one of those points of interest within that screen that you can sort of zoom in on and do something different. Here, for example, it turns to a gear, implying that there's a mechanic. So if you click on that item, something happens. Then, if you click on this item with the grabbing item, it's not so much that something happens as it is that you pick that item up and add it to your inventory. On rare occasions, it won't get added to your inventory. You'll just hold it in hand and then have to click somewhere else to do something with it. There may be a couple of other different icons along the way, but we'll figure those out as we come to them. So I'm not going to go through all of the rigmarole of clicking on items before we need to, but I'll just give you an example to start, just to show you kind of how it works. Here, if we zoom in on the door, remember it said our main objective was to get into the house, and as you can see here, find a way to get into the house. That didn't add a diary entry, but you saw that it just showed up there as a little prompt there to instruct you what your immediate goal is. But we can't actually see. We got the gear icon popping up, but if we click on the door, see it looks like there's a keyhole is on the lion's tongue. But if we try to click on it, the jaws just close and we can't even get the key in. So first we've got to find a key, and then we've got to find something to pry the jaws open so that it doesn't shut. So that's kind of how it works. Again, basically everything in the game can be clicked on or interacted with at some point. For the sake of saving time, I'm basically just going to skip straight to the solution, all right? So we'll escape out of there. Again, you can escape out of these areas by clicking the X, or you can just kind of click off onto the rest of the screen and it'll zoom out. Again, if you are continually able to zoom in on the same point of interest, that implies necessarily that there's still something to do there, because if there's nothing left to do there, it actually won't let you zoom in on that section anymore. So by virtue of the fact that we can zoom in on this place at all, that is a hint that there's still something to be done there. Again, with all the backtracking in this game, it doesn't even necessarily mean that there's something we got to do there right now. It just means in general. Maybe now or maybe later we'll have to come back there. But for the time being, here's what we're going to do. We'll click on this ladder here. Now again, it's a gear instead of the grabbing hands, so that implies the mechanic is going to occur immediately. So if we click on that, we just set it up, and now that we've done that, now we're able to actually zoom in on the lamp. We weren't able to do that before, so we'll zoom in. Here's a little piece of cord that we can pick up. See how it was the grabby hands? So by clicking on that, See, we found a useful item, and it gets used in our inventory. However, it didn't automatically kick us out of the screen, implying that there's still something that we can do here. Again, I'm not going to click on everything, but just keep that in mind that we've got to return here at some point to do something else. So we've got that figured out now. Down here on the ground is this staff, so we can pick that up. We'll go over to this area here, and we'll use the staff to dig through these rose bushes, and there's going to be this glass rose petal. Okay, and see that? It automatically kicked us out, and now if we hover over it, the magnifying glass is gone. So now we know that whatever there was to do in there, we've done everything, so we don't have to worry about zooming in on that section anymore. Now we'll go over to this section. Again, a lot of this game, if you're not using a walkthrough, if you're trying to figure it out yourself or using hints and stuff like that, a lot of the game is going to involve just kind of moving your cursor all over the screen, trying to find areas where your cursor is going to change and find spots that you can click on to interact with, or, you know, potentially find items or solve puzzles. So if we go over to this area here, there's actually a couple things we can do here. First, we can just pick out of this boot this little hook here. And then the second thing we can do is by adding the cord to this boot, it opens up, and look, the key is hidden inside. And it should automatically kick us out, which it did. So now we can go over to the door here. And again, you'll see the staff. We used the staff the first time to dig through the rose bushes, but the item didn't automatically disappear, just like that cord did when we used it on the boot. So that's an example of what I was talking about there, where some items you use them up once, like that shoelace. We used it up once and it instantly disappeared from our inventory, whereas the staff is one of those few items in the game where you can actually use it multiple times. Again, though, you never use it more than twice. This is going to be the second time we use the staff. After this, the staff will disappear. So we use the staff to pry open the jaws, then we use the house key to stick it into the tongue. Now, occasionally this also happens too. Sometimes even when you click things the way they're supposed to be clicked and everything is basically solved, you still may need to click one more time just to sort of activate things. So we need to click one more time in order to turn the key. So we do that, that unlocks the door, and now we can actually enter the house. All right, before we do that, I'm just going to forewarn you that upcoming is going to be one of the worst examples of voice acting I've ever heard in my entire life. I think the people who designed this game, maybe English wasn't totally their first language, and on top of that, they were clearly on a budget. The guy they gave these lines to, it sounds like they just kind of pulled some guy in the office and threw a piece of paper in front of him with some dialogue on it and had a microphone rolling and said, okay, read. Go easy on him. He's trying the best he can, but he's clearly not a trained actor. I promise the rest of the game around this is a great game, so just try to ignore this part because it is pretty cringe. But anyway, here we go. So we'll enter into the house. We've got a new screen here. Who is he and what's he doing here? Here's another example of the cursor changing to a new icon. That's sort of a word balloon there, so that implies that there's some dialogue to be had with this character. There's actually not a lot of spoken dialogue in this game, and there are a few other characters that we'll have some dialogue with. Again, they're not great, but they're a lot better than this guy is. And unfortunately, this guy is, it turns out, I think his name is Ashton. Ashton Thorne is the name of the villain in this game, and because he's the main villain, he's going to come up a couple of times, so you're just going to have to grit your teeth through it. I'm sorry about that, but anyway, here we go.
Hey, are you here to see Allison? No use. She's beyond help, you know, since no one can help a person who has no friends. Right. Or do you have some way to prove me wrong?
Oh god, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so camp. But I don't know, I guess it's just part of the charm of it all. At least the artwork is really nice anyway. But, boy, talk about threatening. He's trying to tell you that Allison can't be helped because she's got no friends. So I guess to solve this puzzle, we've got to come up with some way of proving him wrong. Well, that's what our little, see, it even tells you right there, show the photo to the mage. So I guess it's sometimes just to progress through the game for the sake of getting things moving, they'll just basically tell you what the solution is. But anyway, we'll take that first item that we collected, our photo of friends, and show it to him.
happening? Hurry into the portal. You won't be able to save her.
Well, shit, that was overdramatic. Anyway, I'm just going to take a moment here to show the map again. Again, I'm not going to reference back to this very often, but I'll just show you now that we've actually gotten to a new screen. So see here, our flag has moved down to this screen, a little mini map here. Shows a little preview of the screen, so it reminds you what screen that is specifically, and here's the previous screen that we were just on. And you'll notice now the flag is here because that's where we are, and this screen has an exclamation mark, implying that there's still work to do on that screen. It's not going to tell you how much, though. It might just be one thing we got to do there. It might potentially be lots of things we got to do back there, so that's part of the puzzle you got to figure out. Also, to move back between screens, you can use this map as a quick travel room, so you can actually just click on that screen and it'll automatically take you there. Or you can just use, while you're in this screen here, again, see there's an arrow implying we can go up to this area and whatnot, and other areas. But then if you just go back, any screen you can always go back on, with exception to the first screen. The first screen obviously is the first. There's nowhere to go back to because that's your starting point. But you can always put your cursor down here or over to the side here, and there'll be a back. The whole game is connected linearly, right? All the screens, they kind of branch off. Think of it sort of as like, you know, a tree with all, you know, branches, and then each branch having their own branches and whatnot. So, but they're still all interconnected, and you still can find a linear path through pretty much the whole world. And actually, this game is quite large. There are a lot of screens in this game. And I know how to make my way through them quickly enough, and I'm going to do that just because, well, for one thing, I don't really need to use the map. I know my way around well enough. Also, once this whole map area gets really, really full, it can be a little bit confusing trying to remember what areas add up to where. Of course, later in the game, it can also be useful to reference again if you get stuck, which rooms still have things to do, so you can just do a quick travel to that room. But beyond that, I'm just going to be taking the linear path through, because also it'll be a good reminder in helping you to get acquainted with how all of the rooms are connected to each other. But anyway, before we travel upstairs here, I'm going to do a couple things. First, there's a piano over here, so we can zoom in on that. You'll notice a couple of the piano keys are missing. We can't do anything about that just yet, but here it looks like there's sort of like a reel of some kind. It looks like a fishing line, kind of. So we can collect that, and we'll get off of here. And then there's a little dresser here with 3 drawers. For now, all we can do is access the top drawer, though. So we'll open that, we'll click on that, and inside are these wooden dowels, it looks like, so we can click on that to collect it, wooden sticks. All right, now we'll click on the door here to go upstairs. Here's Allison. Poor thing. What's happening to you? If we click on Allison here, it'll show something kind of neat here. Whoa! She's like changing before our eyes into like some sort of a princess or something. That's pretty wild. It looked like too that she had in her arms, she was holding a copy of the same photo that I had. That's pretty neat. All right, so there's a number of things to do on the screen here. Again, I'll show you here. You can just click back there and then back and then forward, right? So you can see how all of the rooms are all connected to each other. It's pretty easy to navigate through them like that. Before I get to all the other things that there are to do in this room, you'll notice the thing that's obviously drawing your attention to is this sparkly area. Every time you see an area that's sparkly like this, it implies that it is one of those classic Where's Waldo type hidden object screens. This game has 2 types of screens, though. By clicking on this here, I'll show you the first one that we go to. As you'll notice, it's actually not the typical type of hidden object screen that you may be used to with other similar hidden object games, where usually they'll just give you literally a written list of all of the objects that there are to find, and you'll just have to pick them out one by one and click on them to find them. There are a lot of screens like that in this game, but it's interesting that they didn't start with that. They started with the other type, which is a pretty neat type of screen, type of a hidden object game in which instead of giving you a list, written list gives you these silhouettes, and if you hover over them, it gives you a description, right? Tulip, glass, spool, right? So it'll show you these silhouettes of objects that it wants you to collect, but then it's not just collecting them. You have to figure out a way to use those objects immediately within this sub-screen. So here's basically how you solve this puzzle. First, we're going to pick up this glass of water, then we're going to pick up this mushroom down here, and then we're going to pick up these scissors over here. Now, what we can do is start using some of them. So we'll use this mushroom up with these other mushrooms on the basket to open it, and that will give us this spool of thread. We can use these scissors to cut some of these feathers off of the dream catcher. And see, this game isn't particularly consistent, I have to say, with how the game gives you these objects. Sometimes like that, you see the game just gave me the object that I needed, whereas other times the object will just kind of sit on screen and wait for you to click it a second time to recollect it. So here are the glass. We can use the glass on this pitcher of water. That'll fill up the glass, so now we've got that. We can use the glass of water on this pot, and that will cause a big rose to grow. We can collect the rose. See, so that was an example. We used the water on the pot to have something happen, but then it didn't just give us the rose. We had to still manually collect the rose. I don't know. There's not really a lot of consistency here, like I said. But we'll use the feathers on this hat to knock the hat over, and that reveals a needle. Now we can use the tulip on this tulip empty shape on this cupboard here. Open it up, and in here we'll find a pair of tweezers we can collect, and then there's a ripped, looks like a handkerchief of some kind, so we can use the needle and then the thread on that, and that will stitch up the hanky, or I think it's actually a headscarf. Yeah, headscarf. We can now use the headscarf to clean up this little mess here, and that reveals a red button. If we push the button, there's two items in here, a key and what looks like a tail for this squirrel body. We can use the tweezers on this squirrel head and pick up the thorns, so that'll give us the head for the body. And then while that's happening, we can use the key on this little chest here, and that will open up to reveal two more items, a arm and a turnkey. So we'll add the head, the arm, and the tail to this mechanical squirrel, and then use the key to wind it up. And now that we've completed all that, the reward is the mechanical wind-up squirrel. Okay, before we leave this room, there's a couple more things we can do. We zoom in down here, we can collect this plate, and then we can collect the headscarf off of the top of the box. We'll come back to this box here in a short while. First, we'll zoom in over here. There's a diary here, but it looks like it's got a space missing here for an interesting kind of a key to open the lock. So we can't do anything about that just yet. But there's a torn piece of paper here with what looks like half of a worm. So we can pick that up. And you'll see now that we've filled up our inventory, now we've got these arrows appearing on the side so that we can just toggle left and right throughout all of the items, because there's not really a limit per se to how many items we can collect. Also, up here, it looks like she's got this flower lamp, kind of, and we can add the glass petal to that lamp. That opens up, and out of that, we will be able to collect this figurine. We actually need two of those figurines. We've got one for now, so we'll back up out of here, and we'll go back to the beginning screen. If we zoom in on the mailbox here, while we're here, we didn't really have to do this before, but while we're here, we may as well. We can use this hook here to actually sneak in that that open space there and unlatch the mailbox from the inside. And inside here, we'll find there's a couple things. There's a letter. It's indecipherable, but got a picture of a pretty spooky looking little creature there, and as well as this medallion with these 3 sort of jewels kind of hanging off of it there. Okay, now see, there it is right sitting there, but there's only 2. It looks like it's missing the middle one. You'll notice this too, that sometimes there's an item, but you can't actually pick it up just yet. You'll have to do something else first before you can actually obtain it. Again, I'm not going to click on everything a million times, but just to give you an example of how this works. See, it says, judging by the image of the letter, a crown is missing here. That's all that happens when I click on it, so I can't actually collect it just yet. But while we're here, what we can do is use the wind-up squirrel that we got to chew through this metal acorn on the top. This game is very silly, but it reveals the other figurine inside. So now we've got both the elf figurines. All right, we'll call them off that. And again, I'm not going to keep referencing back to the diary, but again, just to show you, see, look, it's got now sort of an explanation of what was on that indecipherable letter here. So it talks about how there's a crown-shaped piece missing from this medallion, this pendant, basically, and I've got to find this goblet and that amulet piece. Apparently, the pendant belongs to this goblin, so we've got to find him later in the road. And again, you can scroll back. This jewelry box is Allison's most treasured possession. She always keeps it locked, never letting anyone pick inside. I believe that's what's something important inside. I've got to open the jewelry box, right? And so again, every little story element that we've encountered so far gets added to the diary. So I'm basically done with the diary now. I'm not going to refer back to it again, but just to show you that that's basically how it works. Okay, now that we're done here, what we're going to do is we will move back into this room, and the back door here, see, it's got this note pinned to the door here with these 2 elf figurines, so that's kind of a clue that that's what you need in order to unlock this back door, but that's actually only half of the puzzle, so we'll add the 2 elf figurines. But now what we have to do is basically move their points of articulation in order to match the positions that they're in. And you'll notice here, this is one of a few puzzles in the game that actually has this time bar that after enough time has filled, if you still haven't solved the puzzle, then after it's filled, you can actually just clip it as a skip button, and it'll just let you progress. Because some of these puzzles can get a little bit tricky, and it doesn't want to prevent you totally from progressing into the game. So, but this is an easy enough one to a simple enough one to solve. So all you do here is we're going to click on our arm once to move it up, click on our leg twice to move it down like that, and then this guy has got a little bit more to do. Click on the arm twice, the wings, his head to cock his head back, and then his legs twice to move it down, and that matches that up perfectly. So now the door is unlocked and we can get back here into the backyard. All right, a few things to do back here. For now, I'm just going to go on to this rocking chair, and there's a yellow brick here that I can just pick up right away. That's all I'm going to do for now, and I'm going to go back further onto this dock. First, if I look on this table here, I've got a lighter and a nut, but they're all covered in grease, so I can use the headscarf here to clean them up, and then I'll be able to collect them both. Twofer, not bad. Every once in a while, you'll find a little screen or a sub-screen or a point of interest where you actually get more than one item at a time, which is helpful. Also, it looks like there's sort of a winch here, so if we add the reel into the winch, we'll be able to reel in the rowboat. And now the rowboat becomes a point of interest. Here we can pick up the umbrella, and then if we add that ripped page of the worm to this book to complete that picture of the worm, it tempts out a goldfish. This game is so silly. But now we can collect the goldfish as an item for our inventory. See, it kicks us out there because we're done. All right, we'll go back. What we'll do here is we'll go over to this table and we'll use the umbrella to stop the water that's blowing out of that hose. And now we can pick up this pine cone. It says it's a weight, but it's a pine cone shaped weight, and I'll explain how we use that in a moment. First, if we look over at this ladder here, it looks like a couple dowels are missing for steps, so we'll stick in these wooden sticks, and now we'll be able to climb the ladder up to this life preserver. But it's, of course, fastened with this clamp here, but if we put a metal nut onto the bolt, and we'll click again to tighten it a little bit, and then click one more time to tighten it a lot, and that opens that up. So now we can grab the lifesaver. We'll go back here one more time, zoom in on that floating buoy back there, and now we can use the lifesaver to rope in the buoy and collect what is on top of it, which is those missing piano keys. All right. We'll go back a screen. We'll go back another screen into here. And again, I'll just reference the map here one more time, just so you can see how everything is sort of branching out, right? So here's the area with the flag. That's where we are, and all of these other rooms have exclamation marks, so you know there's still stuff to be done there. Anyway, we're going to look up on this mantelpiece here, and you see this pine cone here is in fact a weight because it goes onto this clock. So by placing it where it needs to go, it moves aside and only reveals another piece of a missing clock up here. So that's how we solve this whole puzzle, is just kind of keep repairing all of the clocks with whatever it is that they needed that was missing from them. So we'll add that to that clock. Now it gives us this bell, so we add the bell to this clock. It reveals the cuckoo. The cuckoo goes into the cuckoo clock. And that gives us this little piece here that goes on the sundial. And that gives us this little bit of decoration that's missing out of that slot there for that clock. So we'll click that clock. There it goes into there. It gives us a picture which goes into that frame on that big-ass clock. This gives us the top half of this hourglass, which reveals the other little figurine that matches this guy onto this clock. So we'll click there. And that gives us access to this pendulum for that clock. That gives us the missing 4 from that clock. And then finally, that will give us the missing axe from this fireman's clock. And so at long last, now we've solved all the clocks. So it gives us this book key that we've been looking for. Alright, so we'll go back up to Allison's bedroom here. And if we go over to her diary, we add the book key to that, it'll open the diary. Now, I'm going to warn you here, after we do this, this is going to prompt up some text. It travels way faster than I'm able to actually read out loud. I'm going to try my best to read as much of it as I can, but it goes so fast. But anyway, here we go. It opens up her diary, so let's see if what Allison wrote in her diary is going to illuminate us on any of what's actually going on here. So it reads, Aiden, my best unknown friend, things are not that simple. Our world is not the only one in the universe. There is a multitude of parallel worlds. In each of these worlds, we have our own doubles. If a double dies in one of these worlds, the person in the parallel world dies. The evil mage Ashton Thorn is trying to kill Allison, the girl in your world, in order to kill me, Queen Allison, in the parallel world. Please help me, but you will only be able to help us from within the world of magical creatures. And that's... I couldn't even read it if I wanted to. I was reading as fast as I could. But anyway, the point is that this Ashton Thorn guy, this bad dark mage character, he's that's the reason why he's going after your friend Allison here, because he's trying to kill this Queen Allison out in this parallel dimension. So this is basically what the whole game is about, is trying to stop this Ashton Thorn guy from carrying out his nefarious plot. While we're still on the screen, we can also pick up this coin that she also had hidden inside her diary. And then while we're here, we can also get a closer look at this fishbowl here and drop in our goldfish. And by doing so, it'll dig up this sort of acorn-looking kind of a thing. I think it's a shell, actually. We can collect that. Yeah, it's a shell. All right. We'll go downstairs again. Back over to this dresser. Now we can open both of the second and third drawers. So we put the shell onto the second drawer. That opens up. And now we've got some incense sticks in there. And then the third drawer can be opened by putting the coin in the toad's mouth there. And we'll pick up this little sun figurine. Now we'll go back out to the front again, up to the lamp. The sun figurine fits into that little spot above the lamp. That opens up, and now we can unscrew the light bulb. Why would we want to do that, you ask? Well, I will show you. We'll go back up to Allison's room, zoom in on her lamp, and stick the light bulb into the lamp. And now, this happens. Whoa! Revealing magic secrets! So now we can one by one collect all of these pieces of sheet music off of her wardrobe. I'm just going to go back to the map one more time here just to show that, oh no, I was mistaken. There is something else there to do. Okay, never mind. I thought that we were done with the first screen, so I was just going to show how the icon there had changed, but apparently it still hasn't. And actually, I remember exactly what it was. It's that medallion that's still sitting there in the mailbox in front. We still haven't done anything with that. Anyway, we'll come down here. First, we'll go out back, and we'll do one more thing. This little figurine here, it turns out as an incense holder, so we can put our incense sticks in there, and we'll use our lighter to light the incense. All right. So now we've got a burning incense lighter. You also notice we hung on to the lighter. The lighter didn't get used up, so this is actually a dual-use item. So we got one more use for that lighter, so that's pretty cool. All right, we'll come back out here. We'll go over to the piano, use our piano keys to fill in those missing spots, put our sheet music up on here. If you've got some working knowledge of how music works or reads, if you can read sheet music, if you can play music, this is a fairly simple, easy puzzle to solve. Otherwise, just match up the note with where the red dot is shown on the key. It just shows you exactly what the order to play out these notes. So the notes are simply played in this order, like that. And if you do it correctly, then it opens up, and it gives us the jewelry box key. So we'll go back upstairs, zoom in on the box, use the key to open up the jewelry box, and inside is, look, the titular Amulet of Dreams, and we picked up this butterfly token here first. You never really have to worry about manually activating the Amulet of Dreams. The Amulet of Dreams is, well, we're going to pick it up here, but after this, it'll just become activated anytime you pick up one of these corresponding tokens, and it'll simply prompt you to use the token on the amulet in order to activate it. So we'll click on the amulet, and there it is. That's the Amulet of Dreams. We finally collected it. So now what we're going to do to make our way into the next realm is simply use the butterfly token on here. And you'll see it is beginning to open a portal into the next realm. And voila! We can now simply go through this portal just like we would be able to go into any room. And we will tackle that realm on the next episode.
Listen!